efforts to reduce alcohol-related harm with special focus on underage and drinking and on heavy episodic drinking. It has gathered information around good practices targeting the reduction of heavy episodic drinking among young people. The developed guidelines for youth sports club regarding alcohol across EU. The project has reviewed policies related to young people, sport, marketing and alcohol with particular focus on football on international, national and local level. A number of relevant stakeholders have been interviewed at all levels, from international, national and local. And especially we presented with the views of a number of young people, as you said and you mentioned. The young people reviews are presented by themselves in video messages from countries across EU. You will find this webinar useful and that we all will learn a lot today. I hope this will be the start of an ongoing conversation between the different stakeholders interested in promoting healthy behavior through sports. World Health Organization has just released a new report on health behavior of 11-15 years old in Europe. These data are collected and used at national and regional and international levels to gain new insight into adolescent health and well-being, in understanding the social determinants of health and to inform policies and practice to improve the lives of young people across the European region and Canada in particular. I was glad to know that drinking alcohol has continued to decline among adolescents, but the numbers of current alcohol users remain high among 15 years old. 1 in 5 15 years old have been drunk twice or more in their lifetime, and almost 1 in 7 have been drunk in the last 30 days. Underage drinking and heavy episodic drinking of alcohol is of concern in Europe because it is related to the health and welfare of the population. Alcohol use may, for boys and girls, affect their performance at school or work and social relationship with friends, with 12% of young people reporting having had serious problems. Boys are more likely than girls. It's not a surprise. It's a joke by myself, but to report alcohol-related fighting and trouble with the police. Several studies have linked early alcohol use to various problems, including risky sexual behavior, argument, accident, and health problems. Alcohol does not only increase the risk of fatalities and injuries in young people, but it also plays a role in more than half of traumatic brain injuries, and is linked to 80% of young deaths from homicide, suicide, and unintentional injuries. Early alcohol use may have long-lasting consequences. Studies have suggested that young people who begin drinking before age 15 are 4 times more likely to develop alcohol dependence at some times in their lives compared with those who have their first drink at least 20 older. Sport is one of the most popular activities of young people in Europe, but it is underappreciated as a target for policy and behavioral change. Sport reaches many different societal groups, peer leaders as well as vulnerable young people. There is a great potential for prevention health promotion, and the leisure arena is potentially important for shaping attitudes and behavior change. Young people sporting organizations can have an important role to play in strategies to prevent and to reduce alcohol-related harms. Although football-specific clubs is part of the title of the FIFA project, it includes all sport, and the learning from the project should inform policy and practice across other contexts where young people take part in sports and where there are therefore opportunities for preventive interventions. Over the years, sports sponsorship has been used to promote alcohol and marketing, creating a platform for strong marketing, loyalties, and experiences. Sports clubs, including their clubhouse, cafeteria, are places where alcohol use is common. Young people and adolescent sportsmen and sportswomen spend quite some time in these club structures, so they are highly exposed to normative drinking patterns in their local club. Alcohol harms disproportionately affect poor young people, and action to prevent and to reduce alcohol-related harms as the overall effect of reducing health inequalities. In directly working with young people in sports clubs across different countries, the FIFA project is supported by academic research that stress the importance of understanding subjective experiences of people in context of disadvantage. The FIFA project enables us to find out and promote what young people say is effective for them in preventing and reducing alcohol-related risks and harms. Coaches, club officials, and community leaders should have the best possible practice available to reduce underage drinking. I'm delighted that so many of sports organizations are registered for today's webinar, and hope this seminar will be just a start from the common efforts to ensure sports, and football in particular, is not associated with drunkenness, but healthy drinking patterns. And now, before giving back the floor to Marian Skar, I would like to, because she will guide our seminar, be sure that the Sports Eurogroup, with my co-chair Thomas Frankowski and the other colleagues, we will be very careful to your activity, your action, the evolution of your action, and the door, when the COVID-19 will be behind us, the door of the Parliament will be always open for you and for your action. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Tarabella. That was particularly encouraging to have you, with all your knowledge on the European Parliament and the decision making and the possibilities in the future. And I really hope to follow you up on your offer to host us in the European Parliament. 2021, we go for it, hopefully. Thank you once again. It was really good to have you on board. I'm also very pleased to welcome the European Commission, Dr. Attila Balou. The European Commission has funded us, the project, or 60% of the project, and we're very happy to have you here. The DG Santé is important for prevention and working on health issues across the EU. The floor is yours, Attila.
Thank you very much, Marianne, and good morning or good afternoon or anything else to any other participants from all over the world. First of all, let me express our gratitude to Eurocare and all the partners to implement this project, and particularly also not only for the results, but particularly for organizing this great webinar. Obviously, we need to find new ways of working in these challenging times, and I think this is really a great example how it can be working even better than in all times when you have physical meetings. So really, participants from over the world to have around the meeting, it's really great. So I would not maybe repeat some of the data that Mr. Tarabella mentioned, but I just would like to briefly mention that obviously youth drinking, heavy episodic drinking remains, as based on the data mentioned by Mr. Tarabella, as one of the main concerns in the community, in the public health community dealing with alcohol-related harm particularly. And this remains important also for the European Commission. As you know, maybe in the last 20 years, the Commission has been supporting several initiatives and projects and research focusing on preventing alcohol consumption, particularly among young people in Europe. In the EU framework, there have been several publications and more than 33 projects in this time on alcohol, funded or co-funded by the health program, which is the main funding program for health-related issues of the European Commission. And this not includes yet the several projects also coming from the research strand of the EU budget, which is mainly signposted by the latest research programs Horizon 2020. nearly all of these projects had a focus on young people. So I'm very glad that we came this far, and the FIFA project comes to a conclusion now. It's an excellent example of EU-funded projects that we have been supporting, and we are happy that it took place, or it's coming to results now. As we know, FIFA is a joint initiative aiming to reduce underage drinking, which strongly affect the health and welfare of Europe's population. And we know that FIFA reviewed policies related to young people, sport, marketing, and alcohol, with particular focus on football on international, national, and local levels. And in this closing conference, I'm looking forward to learn more about the results, the attitude, the strategies to reduce drinking and harms for young people in sports settings across the EU. And I think it's really great that this project was able to bring together partners across EU, which is one of the major strengths really of many projects of the health program. And this project has really truly implemented this idea now. So I wishing you a successful and great meeting today. Before I'm giving back the floor to Marianne, I would like to draw your attention some great news which has been published only yesterday by the Commission. Some of you maybe heard about it, and that is that the Commission has put forward its proposal for a major financial recovery plan, which is called, well, the mechanism is quite complex, but one of the most important ones, called Next Generation EU. And this is supporting the EU budget with a huge amount of money. And in this context, a press release has been issued yesterday that the new health program, which is called EU for Health, and the aim of which is to strengthen health security and prepare for future health crises and any other situation like this COVID crisis now, will have a budget of 9.4 billion euros for the next 7 years, meaning for the period of 2021 until 2027. I cannot share many of the details of the program yet, but it's clear already from the press release that there will be two strands within the program. One will focus on the health security part of the health system, and the other one will be focusing on improving health outcomes and on health systems improvement. And in the press release already, disease prevention, health promotion, non-communicable diseases are already explicitly mentioned, which gives us in DG Sante, in the Commission, but also for you, hopefully, around the table now, the hope that also in the next 7 years, health promotion, disease prevention, health determinants, risk factors will be properly dealt with, because this amount of money really gives us the chance to take these issues forward in a sufficient way, which could help to reduce alcohol consumption and alcohol-related harm in the EU, particularly for young people and underage people. Just one final note that yesterday it was released only the press release. Today at 11 o'clock, the text of the health program for the 7th year will be published. So after we finish this conference, you can go and check the news, and you will see what exactly will be in this ambitious program for the future. Thank you very much. I'm wishing you again a nice meeting today. Thanks.
Thank you so much, Attila. I have to say, your final comments made me really excited and delighted. We really hope that prevention, and especially focusing on alcohol, of course, will be continued at EU level. And we're looking forward to look at this new press release and the work program for the health program. It's fantastic news. Health has really increased its level. We have never ever had. I mean, we've had 400 million euros. So here you're talking about 1 billion. This is amazing. So even if we only get
10 billions. 10 billions. Instead of 450 million for the last time, now it's like more or less roughly 20, 25 times more.
Fantastic. So even if prevention only gets its normal 3%, it's far above what we've ever been close to. So we will really push forward and hope for a good future for the European population. Thank you. And then we have to continue with the FIFA project, and we are now going to have more in-depth knowledge about the international level of So I'm very happy to give the floor to Erik Kalin, who will be guiding us through and informing us of, no, sorry, sorry. Erik, it's not your turn yet. My apologies. I'm giving the floor to Sandra Trika Sauras, who will give us an bit more detailed knowledge about the FIFA project. Sorry.
Thank you, Marianne, and thank you, everyone. I hope you can hear me. Yes, I think we got a bit confused with all this exciting news coming from Mr. Balogh. So we got, but anyway, I'm very happy to welcome all attendees and to all participants. Really, it's exciting to see how the interest has brought and come to our project, and I hope you enjoy our presentation today. So very briefly, I want to thank you, of course, Mr. Tarabella and Mr. Balogh for the introduction, and Marianne. I will just do a short introduction of our projects, and of course, as you've heard already, the FIFA project is really interested on drinking and alcohol and youth people and young people. So the aim and the reason for this project is that we are concerned about drinking and the health and welfare of our population. So the scientific literature has underlined the connections between alcohol and young people, and those will be highlighted later on when our partners present. There's a clear evidence of connection between alcohol use and adolescence, and some damages that could be evident into structures in the brain and many other systems. So we really need to pay attention to that. You probably are familiar to some of the effects that using alcohol and alcohol consumption could have into our young people. So why the choice of young people for our project and the environment? That was clear. We are concerned about young people, and sports is one of the most popular organized activities for young people in Europe. Probably all of you have been struggling to do some sports during the lockdown, and it's also very important to see that this could be the arena that reaches many different groups like peer, elders, and vulnerable young participants. So the relationships between reliable and stable adult youth leaders are important for us, and how these could be, and this could have a potential role for prevention and health promotion as in the future. So we consider that the leisure, the arenas are important places for us to pay attention to health promotion and prevention. However, there are other risks, and those will be explored further. I will just want to guide you to the main aims of our project, which are mainly to generate good practices that target the reduction of heavy episodic drinking among young people, and also to develop recommendations for youth sports club regarding alcohol across EU on international, national, and local levels. So that's important. How did we do that? We use a methodology, a multi-method design, as you can see in the reference. And for that, of course, it was a complicated, comprehensive structure with 9 main strands that we will name working packages, and towards the efforts to reduce alcohol-related harm on younger populations. Our project will finish in August 2020, So that will make it for 36 months. And we had we were so lucky to work with 8 wonderful main partners that will be presenting the main specifics of this project, and also the pleasure of collaborating with 15 other stakeholders across other 8 countries that are associated, and they will be shown in the slides next. As I said, I won't go into detail, but here you have the main specific objectives of our project. Those will be presented by our partners in the different working packages, and then highlighted and underlined particularly as we go along in the presentations. But you have the objectives here, and then you can go back as the presentation will be recorded too. Thank you. Here you see our FYFA partners in Europe and all our collaboration. As I said before, this has been a great exercise and example of collaboration. So we're very happy of this project and the way that it's moving forward. And finally, just a quick note on our collaborating partners across the world, basically. And we're, we want to emphasize and to thank them also for their collaboration. So I will give the floor to one of our partners in Scotland and to Marianne, and I hope you enjoy the rest of the presentation. I will be keeping an eye on the chat and your questions, and we will be taking them after each presentation. I hope you enjoy it. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Sandra. That was very good overview. I saw there was a little question, so I'm just going to answer that one. What was the age group that we have been looking into? And the age group is, we have been looking specifically on the 13 to 15-year-old in this project. So that's been the age of the young people in this project. But then Eric Kalin from Scotland, Sharp, the floor is yours.
Okay, thank you, Marianne, and I just want to say a few words to thank Eurocare for organising this project and for giving us the privilege to take part in it. I also want to thank our project partners. It's been great. It's been a really great learning experience. It's been invigorating and it's been challenging sometimes as well. But I think that overall, the way that we've worked has really reinforced, and the outcomes that we're delivering really reinforces the importance of international collaboration on issues such as alcohol, which are international issues to be dealt with on a European and global level to improve public health. I also want to thank the other NGOs who have worked with us and the agencies who helped us on Work Package 4, who were very generous with their time and their insights, as well as thanking the project funders, the European Union. And I'm really pleased as well that the Scottish Government contributed also to this project. So that makes me very proud as a currently non-EU nation that our government contributed to this project. I just want to also acknowledge Victoria Guthrie and Dr. Briege Nugent, who's also on this seminar today. And Briege actually carried out far more of the work on this project than I did. I just want to say about the presentation. So the presentation obviously has to be very general because there's a limited amount of time. I would encourage you to read the full report, which I read again for the latest time last night. And there's loads of really useful and important data in there. Don't be scared off. It's 188 pages long, but the main text of it is 45 pages. So it is fairly easy, and there's loads of really interesting, important insights there from our various partners, as well as we've produced infographics and information sheets about our findings. I do want to stress that this event is only a start, that from here we wish to go on and do more in terms of a coherent action plan to influence how alcohol and sport come together and don't come together in the future post-COVID, so that we reinforce sport as a health promoting space for young people, and that we encourage young people to be fit and healthy, to look after their well-being, and to be protected without the influence of alcohol marketing. So I will run through quickly now what we found with the project, what we did in this work package. I'm trying to. Oh, sorry. Have I gone? So, Sandra, I'm trying to move the slides and it's not moving. Okay. Okay. So, so we conducted a literature review, and we also analysed 135 international sporting bodies' websites. We also did an in-depth search of 36 international federations, and we had a very busy period of sending emails to kind of get further information. We also undertook interviews and questionnaires with 10 international bodies who were very generous in giving us their time. So our findings in relation to the literature were that, first of all, sport can be a place where alcohol is drunk more. So some of the literature says that student athletes drink more compared to the general population, and that's associated with, well, can be associated with aggressive and antisocial behaviour. That the drinking norms within certain sporting contexts influence levels of violence, and that may particularly pertain to football contexts, and that where we have alcohol marketing, that's associated with higher levels of alcohol consumption. We also found that there's lots of money, this won't surprise you, there's lots of money in alcohol sponsorship. Beer is particularly associated with football, but at the same time, sport can also be a very positive influence on young people's health and a way of actually achieving social inclusion. The regulation of alcohol sponsorship in sporting contexts is very inconsistent. There is lots of alcohol marketing, and this thing of alibi marketing, which is where you have visual images or which suggest particular products, but they might not mention the product's name. So it might be colours or shapes or hats or scarves or something that might have the colours that people will recognise as being associated with particular brands. Formula One racing continues to have the highest level of alcohol brand exposure of any sports event. And in terms of what international sporting bodies told us, well, what we found from the review and also from what they told us, most had no policy, but that didn't mean there wasn't any association between them and alcohol companies. Only aquatics and the luge were the only federations where alcohol advertising is prohibited, but I'm sure that you can understand that these are probably not the areas where there is most money invested. In terms of messaging that's kind of coming out from international organisations, it very much emphasises individual responsibility and harm reduction, and the idea that alcohol use should be moderate and is a personal choice. But rather than actually saying that alcohol should have no place in sport, which would be the position that we would take. There are some positive developments to increase awareness. But this influence of marketing of alcohol companies continues. So that's led us to draw the conclusion that overall for international sporting bodies, alcohol-related harms for youth has not been a priority. We would hope that from the FIFA project that we might be able to shift this. Rule 36 relates to a UEFA regulation where they had banned alcohol being served during games, and they backtracked on that, so they reversed that, so going in the wrong direction from our perspective. There are no specific programs internationally in relation to alcohol harms. And the biggest issue, this kind of comes back time and time again, the biggest issue is that there's lots of money in the alcohol industry to put into sporting contexts. So what would help support the implementation of policies and programs to reduce underage drinking and alcohol-related harms? And this is at an international level. And we suggest that campaigns would be useful, that we can draw on examples such as Scottish women's football, which we're going to hear about, to promote responsible partnerships. Regulation, so regulating the sale of alcohol, reducing the context where it's available, making non-alcoholic drinks more attractive, and having low-strength alcohol are also other options. But I think overall, just to say that we do actually believe that that alcohol should not be in sporting contexts altogether. So there's a need for a firm resolve, and we need to be evidence-led, and unfortunately we have had some kind of conflicting positions. So we have WHO in 2018 making this statement that marketing and sponsorship of health-harming products has no place in sport. Yet when the World Cup in Russia was happening, and they were producing a video in relation to health, there was no mention of alcohol. So I think that we've a way to go in terms of really putting alcohol and preventing alcohol harms front and centre at international level. However, this is a research area. We hope that this review provides unique insights. I've mentioned some negative perspectives, but I do want to say that I think that we are on a journey and that things are improving. We do believe that regulation by companies themselves and by alcohol producers themselves through what we call self-regulation is not appropriate. We need to have governments and international bodies regulating, but we do also believe that sport can be a hook for change and has a positive impact, and it should not be compromised by the partnership with alcohol companies. We need more evidence, but it's not just about finances. It's about thinking about the messaging that we're giving to young people and how that impacts on the harms that they cause to themselves and the harms that are caused to people around about them. But finishing off with really a kind of that sport can be a powerful tool for the positive, and that includes the messages it decides to promote. And I'm just going to leave you with a very brief video showing one of those situations where sport is being used positively. Just to say that SHAP, we were put in contact with Scottish women's football through the FIFA project. If the FIFA project hadn't happened, this partnership would not have happened. So we're absolutely delighted with this, and this work continues. Hi, I'm Eric Carlin. I'm Director of SHAP, Scottish Health Action on Alcohol Problems, and I'm delighted to celebrate the partnership that we have with Scottish Women's Football to sponsor the SHAP National Performance League. Scottish Women's Football promotes the opportunities of young people to succeed in elite football. Because of that, they've decided alcohol companies have no place in sponsoring their activities. We celebrate that, and these young women realise that there's more buzz to be got from playing football than there is at the bottom of a bottle.
Ever since SHAP got involved, the game's just become a lot more competitive and pushed us a lot harder. It gives you determination to want to keep working hard, because if you think yourself you're not having a good game, like, don't play for yourself, play for the team.
Football's a commitment, so you can't all share it with school friends, but we can share it with each other in the team, so we're both sharing the same commitment.
For girls, it's kind of harder to get into it from a younger age, but it's definitely a lot more supportive now. It's taking a big step.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much, Eric. This was gave a really good overview, and I have to say it was a good learning experience for me also to follow this project, and also to see all the positive things, especially this homeless football championship was. I was very fascinated. It was good to see, and your work together with the Scottish Women's Football Club is fascinating and encouraging, and we can see that it's possible to raise the issue of alcohol, prevention of alcohol-related harm. And we will hear more about it in a little moment. I will give the floor to Sandra to gather questions after both international and national. We'll take them together in one go. So I'm very happy now to give the floor to Emanuela Scafotti, who will be working at national level, has been responsible for the national level from Institute Superiore. Emanuele, the floor is yours.
Okay, thank you, Marian. Good morning, everybody. And well, may I have the first slide, please? Thank you. Well, we are in COVID-19 emergency, and obviously I would have loved to talk about the relationship between alcohol and COVID, but as a matter of fact, is a part also of the learning situation that should affect also sports context. Next slide, please. As a matter of fact, all over Italy, sport was shut down, but I can imagine also in the other member states, sporting event and competition still suspended. Basic sport activity just started yesterday in Italy again, but not for professionals, and there are some problems to be managed, and this is a new context. Probably we should have a window open now. Think about alcohol and sports, also in relationship with this new emerging situation. Next slide, please. Well, this is the FIFA working team, and you see all the people that allow us in Work Package 5 to prepare a full report to be disseminated in the different contexts in order to give a view, an in-depth view of what is going on at the national level in terms of policy, regulation, norms, prevention in sports setting. Next slide, please. Okay, which are the key facts? Of course, young people are much more vulnerable, sensitive population, and there is a need to support strategic cooperation between relevant and setting. We know that the status quo policy implementation, the attitudes, the ability, and the accessibility of prevention programs and perceived obstacles in sports setting are all variables that can influence, obviously, the approach in the different by the different stakeholders. Next slide, please. The challenges in Work Package 5, it's mainly related with the coordination of a lot of information. As a matter of fact, in background, we have the need to share information and good practice, to identify future research need and to influence, hopefully, policy and practices. Next slide, please. The methodology was mainly based on a data collection by a survey, European survey, using a semi-structured questionnaire, asking about knowledge, attitude, perception of the different stakeholders in 3 key sections of answer on prevention and alcohol-related harm to youth in sports setting, implementation of alcohol policy to youth in sports setting in national level, intervention strategies, as an example, good practice, effective reducing alcohol-related harm to youth in sports setting. Next slide, please. And the common areas of data collection for all FIFA work package were mainly based on alcohol policy, the status quo, the summaries of strategical document, what was available, particularly related to football, but also to the other sport in the European Union, the level of implementation for the identification of barriers and for sharing facilitators, and obviously the alcohol prevention strategy collection in the sport environment with focus on young people. Next slide, please. The final report is available, and obviously 10 minutes are not enough to explore all the different areas in which results were obtained. Next slide. Results are very clever in identifying some areas in which there are some commonalities across the countries investigated and the stakeholders investigated. The prevention of alcohol-related harm to youth is an important matter within sport setting, but there is something that should be a priority of national sporting bodies. Sport setting could be an appropriate place, according to the stakeholders interview surveyed that participated to the survey. And according to the stakeholders, the 4 most influential targets audiences in sport settings for initiatives to be activated to prevent alcohol harms to youth are mainly players, coach, training staff, and spectators in the different order, and last but not least, bar staff. And having in mind that most of the stakeholders, the majority, reported that the sporting setting itself has an added value to promote healthy lifestyle, including activity to prevent alcohol-related harm to young people. Next slide. And you can see here how there was a sort of unanimity in the reply by the different stakeholders in the different, for the different understanding of the questions that have been set in the questionnaire. Next slide, please. The most frequent target audience of alcohol prevention initiative gave us also some much more in-depth view of what should be a starting point in prevention, starting from players and coach training staff, in order to have a much more healthy context, both in football, both in the other sports setting. Next slide, please. And you can see that the level of knowledge and implementation of laws and regulation at national level in sports setting, despite the presence of these to protect young people, we found that there is an overall low level of knowledge and implementation at national level in this sports setting, with a different degree, of course, of implementation, not effective and not implemented in 3 out of the 5 countries investigated, nearly effective or implemented in Finland and UK, and an intermediate level of effectiveness and implementation according to the stakeholders interview in Slovenia. Next slide. The barriers are the main obstacles for effective implementation of alcohol policy, mainly related to something that is currently missing. There are gaps to be filled. And there is a lack of regulation of alcohol advertising and sponsorship, mainly linked to youth and sport in the sporting bodies. Bar staff training or responsible serving of alcohol, alcoholics consumption policy for young players within sports setting, sport professional knowledge and alcohol-related harms, and on laws and regulation on alcohol in young people, and monitoring control and sporting bodies by the government. Next slides. Well, this is a slide that, is something summarizing, but there is no a common understanding of what should be the priority, because this is influenced also by the culture, by the society. But anyway, the priority are there everywhere. Next slide, please. And implementation of alcohol advertising regulation is a sensitive issue. There is a lot of things that are still ongoing, but there is something lacking, such as a review of alcohol advertising regulation, low level of enforcement, not well known particularly in the sports setting. There's a mix of direct and indirect ban, but advertising is allowed in public events such as festivals and sporting events. Go ahead, please. And as a matter of fact, there is an urgent need of national sponsorship regulation. In Belgium, in Italy, in Slovenia, and UK, there is no ban on sponsorship of sport events and of sponsorship of youth events. And this is probably not more acceptable. And in Finland and in Poland, there is a ban on sponsorship, but only for spirits. Next slide. So a mix of self-regulation, no regulation, and the regulation are have been experienced. Probably there is something lacking, that is the core regulation, where state is a major stakeholder soliciting something that could influence the availability and the accessibility in of alcoholic beverages within the sports setting, just to change the culture that sports setting should not be affected by sales or serving of alcoholic beverages. Go ahead, please. Well, these last two slides are more or less explaining how in the different culture there is a feeling on the legal age application for the purchase of alcohol and in the sports setting. And I would prefer that the participant to this webinar will go in depth details in the work package report that is already posted on the website of FIFA. Next slide, please. Okay, this is the same. Next. Okay, we can say that legal age anyway is a major issue. We know that is mostly not implemented on a regular basis at the national level and in the sports setting. When interviewed by the FIFA questionnaire, we know that in the different countries we have, you know, a different approach. Next slide. And there is also the opportunity, okay, and there is also the opportunity to create some conclusion on that to implement support and force communication in information strategy, there is a much more need for a common understanding of how to do it in a sports setting, to implement support and force alcohol prevention initiatives and training programs, to encourage a dialogue between sporting and prevention setting, and also to support the adaptation of availability of training materials on alcohol and alcohol-related harm, to fill the gaps of knowledge and information on these, and also looking at the different target audiences, and to extend, of course, this kind of survey also to the other European countries, because we are well aware that these represent only 5 out of the European Union countries. The final one is to acknowledge all the people that they made available to provide these results in the report that we will go ahead in disseminating. And we would like, obviously, all the people who spend their time and invest their time to increase our understanding about alcohol and sports setting and young people. Next slides. And we would like to thank also for the good collaboration among partners, and giving also to the National Institute of Health in Italy the opportunity also for a national much more, you know, much more available approach in better dealing with prevention also in the other European countries. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Emanuela. It is fascinating to see and to get this overview of what's going on on national level, and also to see so little going on in many countries. And like you said, the need for co-regulation should be much higher. I know there is a couple of burning questions, Sandra. Should you take it?
Yes, thank you, Marianne. Actually, there are two questions that are maybe linked, and I will give the opportunity to Eric or Emanuele to respond as you wish. So we have a question from Matthew Pilpot, and he is asking to maybe define or provide a definition of sports settings that we use for the national research. So he's asking whether we refer to the grassroots sports settings or maybe more professional sports settings such as stadia, or both. And according to them, he thinks those are very different settings to research, which we agree. And then Tobias Ergan, he joins in the question, and maybe whether any of you could provide a bit more information about the alcohol and how this might be sold in arenas that hosting games for 13 to 15 years old. I think there's more a clarification. So if maybe Eric or Emanuele can take the question.
But may I say that according to the national alcohol policy, but we try to involve all the possible stakeholders also in the high level. We try to involve also federation of sports, not only on football, but also on volley, athletics. And I saw that also in the other countries, we saw the participation of football association, but also we have the feedback also from some Ministry of National Education involvement and stakeholders, sport departments, state agency. In dealing with knowledge, attitude, and perception, we focus mainly on context that should be the target of an intervention. Not in this work package, but we will listen after my presentation. At the local level, what is relevant, that is also the participation of small societies in which young people usually are, experiencing their sport activity, and they participate as well in giving us much more in-depth analysis of what here in this national policies evaluation has been acknowledged as a much more formal, institutional, and also representative of the big word of sport feedback. So it's a mix. The sport setting is any setting in which sport is, a place people can exercise them, but is also the place of the professional sports, because as you know, in the policy, when we examine the policy, we examine the sponsorship, we examine the rules and the regulation according to the capacity that a major can have to ban alcohol during the major events, the selling and the serving within the sports stadium. So it's a huge one. The framework is very huge, but I want to say that we had the opportunity to examine the level and the degree of a culture on prevention in the sports setting as a whole, and of course the capacity that each country and in each places where sport is going on is managed, how is managed. So this is to me the main results of this of FIFA work package FYFA activity.
Thank you, Manuela. I don't know if Eric wants to. No, that's fine. Thank you. I think we will continue with the rest of the presentations and we will be taking questions accordingly. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Sandra and Emanuela. Very good. Now I have the pleasure of welcoming Vivian McLaren. She comes from the Women's Football Club in Scotland and has really taken a stand. So I am delighted to welcome you here. I think we will start with yeah.
Thank you very much. I am not a stranger to the dark. Hide away, they say, 'cause we don't want your broken parts. I've learned to be ashamed of all my scars. Run away, they say, no one will love you as you are. But I won't let them break me down to dust. I know that there's a place for us, for we are glorious. When the sharpest words wanna cut me down, I'm gonna send the blood, gonna drown them out. I am brave, I am bruised, I am who I'm meant to be. This is me. Look out, 'cause here I come. And I'm marching on to the beat I drum. I'm not scared to be seen, I make no apologies. This is me.
Thank you very much for having me today. There's actually another video which I'll send around all of you, which is actually for the latest season, obviously, which is curtailed slightly. That season in particular was the launch of our partnership with SHAP, so I think it was really important just to show you where we've come there. Just to give you a background, Scottish Women's Football, we own and manage all of the domestic competitions in women and girls football across Scotland. But unlike other nations, we are not the national governing body. So, for example, in England, in Germany, the national, like the Scottish Football Association, would manage all of that. In Scotland, it's totally different. We're separated but affiliated to the Scottish Football Association. So we run 62 competitions from under nines up to our elite level. So we have a Champions League spot, and I think we're actually the Glasgow City are in the quarterfinals at the moment, which is whenever that gets played. But we manage a variety of competitions, the Scottish Cup, the League Cup, etc. And SHAP obviously stepped up to really focus on our elite youth players, because we have a really strong group of elite youth players who are representing Scotland at different levels, and we wanted to try and get investment into their domestic competitions so that it really stepped up the competition. And SHAP have been an absolutely wonderful partner, and we'll talk about that a bit later. We are based within the Scottish FA's buildings in Hampden. When I joined the board, we had less than one member of staff. We now have 8 staff members. The board are all volunteers, including myself. We are represented on the Scottish FA Non-Professional Game Board and on Congress. So my job really is to make sure our voice is heard across the game and across sport in the UK. We operate on a summer football schedule, so our season launch was fantastic in February. We played one fixture of our league season, and then COVID has stopped play. So yeah, it's obviously, you know, around the world there's a huge impact. For us, our season runs February to June, and then August to November, so it's slightly different. Next slide, please. So as I said, you know, we represent, it's actually nearer 9,000 women and girls in Scotland now. The fact that 80% of our registered players are under the age of 18, and in Scotland and the UK, 18 is the age, over 18 is the age from which you can drink alcohol. So our approach really for the past few years has been to partner with positive brands, because we want to be a clean sport. We want to be totally separate from the kind of commercial approach in the men's game, and I understand why gambling and alcohol are partners within the men's game. I'm a marketer, and I understand in terms of target markets, etc. But from our side, you know, the majority of our players are under 18. Why on earth would we want to promote alcohol to young athletes and young girls as they're moving through sport? Physical and mental health is a key part of what we're doing, and especially within women and girls participating in sport. You know, it's about diet, sport and exercise can make a huge difference. We also know that girls up to the age of 10 participate in more sport than boys in Scotland. After the age of 10, that then drops off. So we're working very closely with the Scottish Government, and I'm on the Women and Girls in Sport Advisory Panel to try and keep those girls in sport, and obviously attract women who perhaps have been in sport and have, due to life changes, having babies, whatever, can come back to sport. So we're very much involved in that aspect as well. In terms of our commercial aspects, we get no public funding whatsoever at all from anywhere, because we are a kind of standalone organisation. So our income is only from our members paying affiliation fees and our commercial income. And our commercial income now makes up, I think, about 70% of our total turnover. So it's a very, very important part for us. So having a clear message on the type of partners that we want is very, very important to us. Next slide, please. So I have been on, when we announced this stance, which I really don't think is rocket science. If most of your players are under the age of 18, why on earth would you want to push alcohol and gambling to them? For me, it's fairly straightforward, but certainly in the media, there was quite a, why have you done this? You know, are you stopping income coming into women's football in Scotland? And as I said there, you know, the negative feedback has been about the immediate investment we're missing out. But from our side, we have been approached over the years by alcohol brands who offered us, you know, significant amount of money to be part of our elite end of the game. We were approached by gambling organisations as well. We actually don't allow, I don't know how it is in other parts of the world, but gambling companies send people called spotters to sporting fixtures to phone back number of corners, number of free kicks, etc., etc. We ban them from our matches as well, because they try to turn up at women's games and we have to eject them. So what we're looking for and what we do have are long-term partners. We don't want partners that sign a check and walk away. We're really, really involved with our partners. And the partners we have been extremely supportive. And what we're trying to look at is, you know, how we attract a better quality of supporter to take our income even further than we have. So I would say that we were definitely on the crest of a wave as the season kicked off in Scotland, because Rangers Football Club, Celtic Football Club, who are huge in the men's game, had not invested at all in their women's and girls football. They suddenly stepped up in the past couple of years. So this season we were seeing full-time professional football at these clubs. And actually the first game of the season, Glasgow City, who have won the league for 13 years, were defeated in the first game by Celtic. So it was a very interesting season. So we are where we are. Things are paused, but we obviously look for the positives to move forward. Next slide, please. I've been asked quite a bit about the decision-making process around, again, this decision quite a lot. And really, we do a lot of research with our clubs, and obviously in many sports, it's the elite end of the game that tends to have the biggest voice and the biggest focus. We focus on all of our teams down to our under-9 coaches and teams up to obviously our elite Hibernian and Celtic and Glasgow City. And the feedback from a lot of our clubs is that some of the issues that the coaches are facing, and we have a child wellbeing and protection full-time member of staff that we fund. Some of the issues are, quite alarming, but not uncommon within girls and teenagers. In terms of body image, eating disorders, anxiety, etc. And they would rather that we look at these positive partners and that we take a stance to try and remove the negativity that alcohol and gambling brands could bring, and focus on how we help women and girls have a positive experience within football, whether they are playing at an elite level and they want to be full-time professional players, or if they just want to play recreationally. And we do have new recreational leagues for that purpose. And again, that was taking feedback from clubs. So our members support what we're doing. Probably the teams that are associated with men's clubs perhaps moaned initially about the fact that we don't want gambling sponsors on shirts. We don't want alcohol sponsorship on shirts. We don't want alcohol sponsorship at all for all the clubs as well. But I think most of them are beginning to see the positive impacts. In women's football, it's football, but it's not men's football in terms of the commercial environment. And also game day, women's football is very much a family affair. We see full families coming to the games. The players stay behind for half an hour after the matches to take photos with kids and to sign shirts. And you will see little boys with shirts on with their favourite female player on the back. You'll see little girls, because little boys and girls do not discriminate by gender or anything. So the key thing for us is that we are trying to support our role models when they start at age 9. They can see that there's players in our top leagues who perhaps aren't full-time professional, but they're conducting themselves as professionals, and that is the most important part for us. Next slide, please. Yeah, I think I sent up-to-date slides, so my apologies that these aren't updated, but essentially there's so much been going on. Who knew that the first ever game of women's football was played in a village outside Scotland 390 years ago? And I think we have here in that photo Rose Riley. For some of our Italian guests, they'll perhaps remember Rose Riley as being the World Cup winner, Scottish player who played for Italy. And won the World Cup, I think, in '83 for Italy. Absolute superstar over there. So she's one of my good friends, and she's absolutely phenomenal. So Rose is involved in quite a lot of our work as well. So next slide, please. And then here we have our beautiful brand, so SHAP, sponsor of our national performance leagues. And I think some of the players there, when you have a sponsor for a competition and you can treat those players like they're part of something special, the impact that has is absolutely huge. And all of those players, we've got under 15s and under 19s. Those girls are absolutely thrilled with the fact that we have someone who's interested in investing in them. So I'd just like to thank SHAP for that, because it's been hugely successful, and this past season as well, it's been absolutely wonderful. Next slide. Again, before I finish up, our strategy is very, very clear, and we are aligned with the Scottish FA, and the Scottish FA look after the national setup, so the Scottish women's national team and all the age groups there. Essentially, we're trying to get more people playing and more people watching. It's very simple. one of the big ways we will do that is by increasing the investment into the game in Scotland. So that's a big part of what I do. But, you know, it's really looking at being a clean sport in Scotland, which, you know, we do love alcohol in Scotland. So we stand out from the crowd somewhat, I would say. Next slide, please. And then, you know, when you're surrounded by people who share a passionate commitment around a common purpose, anything is possible. So I think we've seen that in the past 3 or 4 years when we had no sponsors, to having 70% of our income from people that want to partner with women's football. So thank you very much.
Yeah, no, there I am. Thank you so much, Vivian. It was
Thank
really a pleasure.
Thank you for asking me.
You know, we really need your voice from the sporting organization.
You've got it. Whenever you need it, you have it.
I'm really delighted. And also it's been a good learning experience to see that it's actually possible. And you are doing it, and you have economic support from other organizations or businesses.
Yeah.
So, and of course, it's no surprise that I totally agree with you that when you're playing with young people under 18, alcohol and gambling is not an appropriate
No, you'd be amazed at the questioning around that. It's just, yeah.
But thank you so much again. It's really, really fun to see. Thank you. So we will continue with the sport organizations and now at local level. And I have the pleasure of giving the floor to Ellen Kuge from VAD, who was responsible here. The floor is yours. Yeah?
Thank you. Thank you. Good morning, everyone. I'm Ellen Kogge, staff member of VAD, the Flemish Center of Expertise on Alcohol and Other Drugs. VAD coordinates most of the Flemish organizations in Belgium that deal with the issues of alcohol, illegal drugs, psychoactive medication, gaming and gambling. During the next 15 minutes, I want to tell you more about the role of local sport clubs in relation to alcohol, youth and alcohol marketing. Next slide, please. The aim of Work Package 6 is to review local policies and practices related to alcohol, young people and alcohol marketing in 6 member states. So the output of Work Package 6 is twofold. On one hand, an output on the written policies of the club selected for each country. And on the second hand, an output on the interviews conducted with key informants of the club. Next slide, please. In each country, 1 or 2 local sport clubs with young players between 13 and 15 years old were contacted. It needed to be a community sports club that plays at amateur or intermediate level and that is eligible for sponsorships with a variety in members. So first of all, the project partners gathered relevant data about the written policies of the clubs, and their written policies were compiled, examined and analyzed. After that, the project partners conduct interviews with 3 to 6 stakeholders in each club to explore their attitudes towards alcohol and young people, whether they think alcohol is a challenge with the young people with who they work, also strategies used to reduce alcohol-related risk and harm for young people, also the attitudes and actions in relation to exposure of young people to alcohol promotion, and lastly, methods that they believe are effective and provide evidence to support these conclusions. Next slide, please. So here you see an overview of the participating country partners and the number of sport clubs they included to conduct interviews and collect the data of the written policies. So there are 6 member states, as you can see, the United Kingdom, Belgium, Italy, Slovenia, Poland, and Finland. Next slide, please. So here you see an overview of the participating sports clubs in each country, and we would really like to thank them for their participation in the FIFA project. Next slide, please. So as I mentioned before, the project partners contacted 1 or 2 local sport clubs for gathering relevant data. These participating sport clubs were asked to provide us with any written policies with a special focus on policies that might be linked to alcohol use or alcohol problems or alcohol advertising. For example, the sport club vision and mission, canteen house rules, and so on. Each project partner forwarded the original documents and identified the sections in these written policies and translated those sections into English. After that, VAD analyzed these documents and provided a report on policies regarding alcohol presence of consumption in the club rules of the different sports club targeted. So after bringing all the data together, a thematic analysis was carried out of the written policies, and of course, several emerging themes were brought to light. First of all, most often, living a healthy lifestyle is mentioned in the club policies. So several clubs note their intention to create a positive and healthy environment for their members. Secondly, there is a variability in the presence of rules about alcohol when it comes to parents versus young players. So none of the clubs mentions rules about alcohol directed to the parents, even when they do have rules for the players. Thirdly, the policies of the sports clubs in Slovenia, Poland, Belgium, and the UK mention sanctions when the rules of good conduct are broken. Last but not least, not all policies pay attention to club sponsorship, but those who do mention that, it has to be in accordance with the objectives of the sport. For example, a sponsorship cannot be in contradiction with the ethical basis of sports. Lastly, almost none of the policies explicitly mentions taking preventive measures when it comes to the exposure of alcohol and alcohol consumption by young people. Next slide, please. After analyzing the written policies, semi-structured interviews were used in order to gather information while allowing flexibility to explore attitudes and perceptions. As I mentioned before, each partner country interviewed between 3 to 6 stakeholders. So we included key respondents such as team trainers, canteen personnel, board members, the chair of the board, and some key figures in the sports club had multiple responsibilities. Of course, after analyzing the semi-structured interviews, several emerging themes were brought to light. We saw that, first of all, the impact of alcohol consumption in sport clubs is still unrated. So sport club stakeholders, they are well aware of the risks involving alcohol consumption by their young athletes, but they did not think it was a problem in their club. We found out that alcohol consumption by young people is seen as a problem among the general population. So it appears that sports clubs are convinced of the problematic nature of alcohol consumption among young people in society, but does not seem to extend to the sports clubs. The likelihood of alcohol consumption and related harm reduces when players are ambitious and engaged in higher level competition. And we found out that coaches and peers are seen as important role models, and club stakeholders view responsible alcohol consumption as a duty of the parents. This refers to the education of young players on responsible alcohol consumption. Last but not least, there is a little or no alcohol advertising when it comes to youth trainings and matches, but alcohol advertising, especially on social media, can influence young people's attitudes and behaviors in relation to alcohol. Lastly, sport clubs have a positive attitude towards alcohol prevention and health promotion. Unfortunately, preventive actions are rarely put into practice, and if they are, the prevention efforts related to alcohol consumption are mainly focused on discussion and education. Next slide, please. So we found out that there is a prevailing absence of focus on alcohol prevention and health promotion in clubs' documents. Sport club stakeholders are well aware of the risks involving alcohol consumption by their young athletes, but the implementation of a systematic health promotion initiating covering alcohol consumption in areas that are not directly sport related is lacking. So the following recommendations to policymakers and sport clubs are made. First of all, even though alcohol consumption does not immediately seem to be problematic in these sport clubs for young people, it can become an issue, and the development of a carefully designed alcohol policy is advised. Secondly, awareness is raising among club stakeholders about harmful alcohol consumption and the necessity of alcohol prevention in sport clubs should be encouraged. When constructing an alcohol and/or drug policy, it is important to address the following 4 pillars. Firstly, rules and regulations. Secondly, education. Thirdly, referral. And fourthly, structural measures. It is recommended to provide health education to sports club managers that does not only tackle performance-related health subjects, but also non-performance-related subjects. Last but not least, health promotion training sessions directed to the sports club key persons should be available to encourage the practical implementation of health promotion actions for players and also for supporters. And lastly, we recommend instituting a ban on alcohol advertising before, during and after sports events for young people, and ideally for the sports clubs in general as well. So I would like to end my presentation with the introduction video from the Sportivos program in Flanders, Belgium. Sportivos focus on alcohol and cannabis use in sport clubs and is based on the Good Sports program. In this introduction video, sport clubs share their experiences with Sportivos. So before you see the video, it is important to know that this is the perspective of the sports clubs in Belgium, and it's not the perspective of the FIFA project. So have fun with watching this video. Thank you.
Sportivos is een alcohol- en drugspreventietraject binnen de sportclub, waarbij sportclubs 3 labels kunnen scoren: brons, zilver en goud.
Alcohol en petanque wordt altijd wel al een beetje gerelateerd met elkaar. We gaan eigenlijk op zoek naar een middel dat op een verantwoordelijke manier met elkaar kan omgaan. Maar ik vind het wel belangrijk dat mijn kinderen in clubverband iets doen, maar ook binnen die club, dat ze wel ruimer bezig zijn dan enkel met de sport. En alcohol en drugs komen daar ook bij.
Dat is ook niet de bedoeling dat alcohol geband wordt uit de sportschool. Het is de bedoeling dat de mensen er bewust over gaan nadenken.
Elke club heeft zijn eigenheid en daarom is Sportivos ook zo ontwikkeld met die verschillende labels. Een voetbalcaféploeg bijvoorbeeld, die zou kunnen zeggen: brons is voor ons genoeg, en die kunnen daar gewoon perfect stoppen.
Graan is het een ploeg met ambitie, dus goud is volgens wel het ultieme, daar willen we toch wel naartoe.
Thank you very much, Ellen. This is very encouraging also to see what's happening at local level, and it's for me been a very good learning experience to follow the project. I'm looking at the time and a bit conscious, but Sandra, maybe you could take one question?
Yes, indeed. I think now the questions are just coming in. So what we will do, I'll launch a question, maybe Eric can take it, and then the rest of the questions for VAD, maybe Ellen, she has said that she will be happy to take them by email. And I see that there's some questions for you, Ellen, Christelle, Serge, I think she has some questions for you, but I'll go with the question from the UK and maybe joined from Belgium, from Christophe Cabret. So the question, Eric, is related to Scotland and some of the comments that Vivian had shared with us. So in Scotland, football sponsorship by gambling and betting companies it has increased, apparently, according to Harpreet Kohli. And to what extent do you think, or can the public health recommendations of the FIFA project report could be applied to these new areas of sponsorship, whether we have a view on that? And then maybe linked to that, Christophe Cambre, he's asking whether reducing or banning alcohol related sponsorships in youth sports could be one of the goals, and on the other hand, gambling sponsorship seems to be on the rise also. Do you think that can force be combined, or are we just creating opportunities for the gambling industry? I think from Vivian's presentation was clear, but maybe Eric can take this question.
Yeah, thank you. And I'm sure Vivian will want to say something about this as well. I mean, I think just to say that I think this is what FIFA is enabling us to do, is to reframe some of the ways that we think about these issues. And that's what Scottish women's football have done very effectively in Scotland. We shouldn't assume that we just have to take money from anyone who's going to sponsor things if it conflicts with the purpose of our activities in the first place. And sport is all about health and well-being and developing sense of community, achieving, being competitive as well is what sport's all about. And sponsorship from alcohol companies and from tobacco companies, which nobody would think about now, and from gambling, just intervenes in all of that and compromises entirely what you're about. I think it's not correct to assume that we have really good evidence to say that that if agencies didn't, if football clubs, if sporting clubs didn't take money from alcohol, that they wouldn't be able to get money from anywhere else. I think that there are plenty of big companies, even post-COVID, who have plenty of money sloshing around that they want to use to promote, and sponsorship can be attracted without compromising the really important health messages. Can also just say, I think there's a real message here as well, that women are leading the way on this, and I think some of us men could do well to listen to women and change some of our preconceived notions about how the world should be run.
I'd just like to pick up on the sponsorship point. I think that certainly in the UK, traditionally, alcohol and gambling has been is prevalent in most sport, especially football. And I think there was a study that Nathan Critchlow did at Stirling University, which looked at, across not just sport, but every single kind of channel in terms of alcohol advertising, does that impact young people? And it does, it does. You can actually tangibly see the effect that has. I think that gambling companies certainly don't have as much money as they did post-COVID. I think their income has dropped significantly. I think that certainly from our side, it seems to be broadcasters that have more money at the moment to invest. We have a broadcast deal with MG Alapa, which is a Gaelic speaking channel in Scotland, but it's also English as well. And they were the first ever ones that we signed a broadcast deal with. We audited the market when we accepted that deal. We spoke to Sky and BBC Network, BBC Scotland, a lot of other channels, and at that point they were prepared to sit in the wings and kind of see how women's football progressed. So 2-3 years on, we now have a position where there are other broadcasters that actually want to the rights to our games. So that was something that was quite an exciting development before COVID hit. Even during COVID, a lot of these broadcasters are still very interested, so we will look at that. But certainly, SSE Energy were our Scottish Cup sponsor. They were our first commercial partner. They have been acquired by OVO. OVO has since, decided to make lots of redundancies. So I don't know if we will get a renewal from that side. So I'm going to have to look at that. But certainly there are other businesses out there who want to invest in sport and perhaps haven't done so because of the gambling and alcohol associations perhaps. So I definitely think there are opportunities there, certainly in finance. Scottish Building Society are our league sponsor, but there's a lot of interest from finance as well. So I just think it's been quite tunnel visioned and quite easy to take money. All right, we'll take that because that's always happened, and that's easy. We'll just put them on the shirt and we'll, they'll be our beer or whatever. That you need to think more creatively than that. I don't think a lot of sports think creatively. They just take money, and we don't have tons of money. We probably need, in the next 2 years, we'll need to probably double what we bring in order to make our top league fully professional. But I think we'll do that eventually. So.
Thank you very much, Vivian. And it's encouraging to hear you and for the replies. And Sandra, we are now moving forward to listen to the voice of young people. We are going to show you a video now with them all on. I just have to tell you, it does take 10, 12 minutes. But for us, this is important because they are a very important part of this project. And if we had been in Warsaw or in the European Parliament as planned, we would have invited the young people so they would have been here talking to you. But now instead we have them in the video. So please, yeah, I think it's ready.
Hi, I'm Eric Carlin. I'm Director of SHARP, Scottish Health Action on Alcohol Problems. And I'm delighted to introduce these films from young people which have been made as part of the FYFA, the Focus on Youth Football and Alcohol project, which is a project that's been funded by the European Commission. The focus of the project is on reducing underage drinking and heavy episodic drinking among young people across Europe. As part of the project, we've been filming young people to find out from them about alcohol and about sport, about how the two things interact, to get their opinions on alcohol and health, and also to get their opinions on things such as alcohol marketing and whether or not it has a place in relation to sport and young people. One of the things that we've been trying to emphasise in this project is that we need to protect young people from alcohol harms. It's also really important for us to hear from young people themselves about what they think and about how we can best reduce their harms. What that means is that sometimes they will surprise us with some of their insights. So we may not always agree with everything that we're being told, but that doesn't mean that we shouldn't be listening to it and paying attention to it in the strategies and educational and information resources that we develop. So please listen to the young people, hear what they're saying, appreciate their fantastic energy and what they've committed to in terms of sharing their perspectives with us.
Today I'm going to be talking about how being active and being linked within sports may give you an excuse or a lean way to stay out of trouble and not be in the way of alcohol and drugs. And this is important to me because I feel as if there's a lot of peer pressure within a lot of younger age groups who may feel the pressure to actually go in and start to drink or start taking drugs. And being active can give them an excuse almost that their friends may or may not accept.
I think it's mostly in friend groups that the people who start drinking underage don't really themselves want to do it, but they're pressured into drinking by their friends. As myself, I'm a sportive person, so I don't want to get in those friend groups who drink and use drugs and like this. I think it's very bad for your health, and in long terms it destroys your brain. If your friends are pressuring you into drinking, just don't drink, say no, and maybe even leave from the friend group.
Nie musisz robić tego, żeby się przed kimś popisać i nie musisz wziąć alkoholu, żeby coś komuś zaimponować, bo możesz odmówić i nikt nie powinien tego śmiać, bo to jest twoja decyzja.
I also think that people who have the drinking problems and like this, if they want to stop drinking, for example, they can start any sport. For example, football, it's good to have fun and take your ideas and your mindset away from drinking and problems, so you can have fun with your friends.
Ludzie, którzy uprawiają sport, mają mniejsze tendencje do spożywania alkoholu, różnych używek i wiodą lepsze życie. Osoby, które za bardzo nie uprawiają profesjonalnie sportu i dużo używają tych używek, alkoholu, po prostu widać, że bardziej jest dla nich męczące wykonanie prostych ćwiczeń i to widać, że mają słabszą kondycję, mają na przykład problemy jakieś z oddychaniem, później jakieś mają choroby i uważam, że warto pomóc takim osobom, bo niekiedy niektórzy nie zdają nawet sobie z tego sprawy, że niszczą własny organizm i w późniejszych latach może mieć to bardzo ciężki skutek.
Sport to jest dla mnie pasja od dziecka i uważam, że dzięki temu nie mam w ogóle problemu z tym, żeby nie pić alkoholu. Chciałbym, żeby więcej młodych osób zaczęło uprawiać sport, bo dzięki temu nie będą mieli z tym problemu, z piciem alkoholu i będą zdrowsi. I jeżeli byłaby taka możliwość, to w przyszłości chciałbym być kimś takim, kto przyjdzie do szkoły jako znany piłkarz i powie innym, że nie ma co pić alkoholu, bo to jest szkodliwe.
I think it's important to involve a lot more people into sport and even just show them how sport really affects them. So like if you get someone who's been having alcohol issues from a young age and just get them brought to like even one sort of sport and just involve them in that and see how well it can actually change their life, change their mood and just changes everything for them and get them out of trouble so much more easily. What I'd like to happen for people to actually realise the impacts is bring role models into school and just show them how sport has affected their life and how not drinking too much alcohol can actually affect their life in sport.
Chciałabym porozmawiać o spadku świadomości, jeżeli chodzi o wpływ alkoholu na organizm człowieka wśród osób poniżej 15 roku życia, bo te młodsze osoby częściej sięgają po używki niż te urodzone w poprzednich pokoleniach. Jest to dla mnie ważne, dlatego że chciałabym, żeby młodsze osoby wiedziały więcej o tym, co może im się stać po wypiciu alkoholu i mogły świadomie podejmować swoje własne decyzje na ten temat, niezależnie od presji społeczeństwa. Byłam świadkiem sytuacji, kiedy osoba młodsza, około 13 lat, żeby zaimponować reszcie grupy, wypiła bardzo dużą ilość alkoholu w jednej chwili i omal nie przepłaciła tego swoim własnym życiem. Chciałabym, żeby wiedza na temat działania alkoholu na organizm człowieka była przekazywana we wcześniejszych etapach edukacji. Może wtedy młodzi ludzie zainteresowani piciem alkoholu będą wiedzieli, czym to może grozić i jaki może być tego skutek.
Suomessa nuoret juo vähemmän alkoholia kuin ehkä parikymmentä vuotta sitten, mutta sitä silti tapahtuu ja nuoret testailee paljon ja haluaa kokeilla kaikkea, mutta musta tuntuu, että alkoholin juominen nuorten keskuudessa on kuitenkin laskenut tosi paljon. Nuoret ihmiset välittää paljon terveydestään ja harrastaa paljon liikuntaa ja on tajunnut alkoholin haittapuolet.
Terveystieto alkaa koulussa 13-vuotiaana. Meillä on koulussa vierailuja, mutta sitten meillä on oppitunneillakin puhutaan alkoholista ja kaikesta muusta terveydestä ja silleen. No siis musta se on tärkeää, että nuoret saa tietoa, että ne tietäisi jotain alkoholin käytöstä ja sitten voisi ehkä harkitakin sitä enemmän.
Mä en halua ehkä lyödä alkoholia alaikäisenä, koska se voi vaikuttaa just urheilusuorituksiin ja vähentää motivaatiota.
I want to talk about alcohol advertising. I don't see many adverts on my phone because I don't have one, or on TV. But when I'm in town, I see lots of adverts on billboards. It's important to me because if you see alcohol advertisement when you're younger, then it pulls you in, and because it's colourful and it just makes you want to try new things. I want to change the alcohol advertising because they don't show the bad side of drinking alcohol too. I just imagine it happening by showing like the bad things that could happen to you after drinking alcohol, or like what like the end result of it all happening.
Chciałbym, aby sprzedawcy zawsze prosili o pokazanie dowodu osobistego i aby na wszelkich wyrobach alkoholowych była pokazana osoba, która jak wygląda przed i po nałogu. Jest to dla mnie ważne, ponieważ w moim środowisku sportowym osoby, które palą i piją alkohol, mają gorsze wyniki.
I want to talk about sports and alcohol and lowering the age of drinking so the legal age could be 16, so everyone near enough my age are safe. I think lowering the age to 16 and the safety for going in pubs and stuff like that is so much better, because when you're going out into forests and parks and stuff, it can get dangerous, you can get lost, you can hit your head and no one know. But in a pub it's social, everyone can see you and you're safe and not in the cold. I want all people my age and all the youths who are drinking and doing stuff like that, I want them to be safe, I don't want them to get hurt.
Mä puhun tänään alkoholista ja miten se ei sovi mun mielestä urheilutapahtumiin, sillä alkoholi vaikuttaa ihmisen negatiivisesti, sillä se vaikuttaa ihmisen käytökseen ja sitten tulee fanien kesken tappeluita ja sitten nuoret lapset voi pelästyä ja niille voi tulla traumaa siitä tappeluista. Koska mä oon ollut joskus pallopoikana ja mä oon ollut fanikatsomoiden lähellä ja sitten kun on tullut maali, niin ne on voineet heittää mun päälle jotain juomia ja sitten ei ollut hirveän kiva ja vähän silleen jännittänyt, että mitä käy, kun ne on käynyt aika villinä siinä takana. Mun mielestä alkoholia ei pitäisi myydä tai pitäisi vähentää sen myyminen urheilutapahtumissa, ettei käy mitään tapaturmia tai muuta pahaa ihmisille.
I think that there's so many little kids and stuff and people who are there just to watch the game, not to go fighting and shouting, and if alcohol got involved into football stadiums, there would be so much innocent people getting hurt.
Yeah, so here we heard the voice of the young people, and I've seen this video now several times, but I get inspired every time I see them, and I'm hopeful for the future. But now we want to learn more about what the young people say. And Lena from EHYT in Finland, the floor is yours.
Okay, thank you, Marianne. Good morning, everybody, or is it afternoon already? What a great video we just saw. It's really great, thank you. I'm happy and proud to bring this same webinar, Greetings from the Young People too. FIFA project is about young people and their well-being, so their participation is crucial. We need to hear young people's own voices. I'm Leena Sipinen. I come from EHYT, Finnish Association for Substance Use Prevention, Finland, and I'm going to tell you some results from the work package 7. Next slide, please. Thanks. Work package 7 focuses young people's opinions on alcohol and sports. It's about their attitudes and behaviors in relation to alcohol and their exposure to alcohol marketing. It is also about how young people would reduce alcohol-related risks and harms. The data was collected by semi-structured interviews in 6 countries: Belgium, Finland, Italy, Poland, Slovenia, and UK, Scotland. Altogether, 65 young people ages between 13 to 18 were interviewed. Interviewers were participating in sports. Most of them played football in a local sport club. Same clubs with the same, like in work package 6. In Italy, the data was collected in a big sporting event called European Sports Week at the Stadium of Rome. Also, the data was collected a slightly different technique. On the right side of the slides, you will see through the presentation players with speech bubbles. You have a wrong slide now, Sandra, sorry. Yes, thank you. Speed bubbles. The bubbles are direct quotes from young people. They are just kind of snapshots without any representativeness. It is important to note that work package 7 is not a high scientific research with representative sample. We had a limited data. We cannot say that it represents all young people playing football in Europe or something like that. Anyhow, the qualitative data gives us an interesting insight into the world of the young people. Next one, please. This is a questionnaire we used. We had 5 categories, which were alcohol use by young people, alcohol marketing, sport events, experiences as football junior player, tackling alcohol-related behavior, and finally we had 10 statements to answer. Next, please. Underage drinking is a well-known phenomenon among young people, but most of the interviewers reported that alcohol does not belong to their own lifestyle. Alcohol was not consumed at sports clubs, not by young people themselves, nor by the coaches or any other stakeholders of the club. A few interviewers reported parental alcohol consumption at clubs related to their children's football hobby, like when closing the season or winning the tournament. Most interviewers in the study felt that young people doing sports drink less alcohol than those who are not doing sports. They provided pragmatic arguments for this view, such as athletic ambition and high goals and lack of time for celebration. There were different kinds of attitudes among the interviewers when it came to the alcohol use of their peers. Most interviewers felt that it is personal decision and private matter whether to drink alcohol or not. Some interviewers strongly disapproved their peers drinking. Next, please. Young people see a lot of alcohol marketing, also in sports. For most, this gives rise to wondering, questions, and criticism. They felt that alcohol and sports should not be combined. More than half of the interviewers wanted a ban on alcohol advertisement in sports. Some participators felt that alcohol marketing is important because of the sponsorship of the money. Young people did not believe that alcohol advertising has any effect on their own drinking. It could affect others, but not them. Next, please. Young people see a lot of alcohol use resulting in negative consequences like violence in football stands. Young people didn't find beer selling a good idea on stadiums. There were also young people in the data who saw beer selling as positive. When drinking doesn't go too far, it can also create a good atmosphere among fans, somebody said. Next slide, please. School, parents, friends, and the internet are the most important sources of information and support for young people on alcohol issues. Most interviewers didn't remember any actions at the club to minimize young people's alcohol use. More than a half of the interviewers said that it could be appropriate that their coach would discuss alcohol issues with the team. And next slide. We have documented all the recommendations and wishes from our interviewers. They had very relevant recommendations for their peers, adults in general, and for professionals and decision makers too. Let's see what they wanted to say. Here are the recommendations from young people to their peers. Don't fall outside society. Having a place to study or job are important. Get a sports hobby and do it professionally with high goals. Put football before celebration. Understand the harm caused by alcohol to your health and to your sports performance. Start alcohol use at earliest when you are 18 years old. If having a drink, do it with moderation. Choose carefully the company you hang out with. Do not force anyone to drink alcohol. Next slide, please. And here we have recommendations for young people to adults. Don't allow your underage kids to drink alcohol. Don't buy alcohol for minors. Discussion is a better way to deal with young people rather than just warning about the harms. Listen to the young people and help them. Drinking should be moderate, not just among young people, but among adults too. Don't behave aggressively when watching football games. The coach should discuss alcohol issues with the team and prepare the team rules together. Recommendations for young people, for decision makers and professionals. Restrict alcohol advertising in sports. Ensure that alcohol consumption at football matches is moderate and the public safety is guaranteed. Improve controls to ensure that shops don't sell alcohol to minors. More attention to the problem of adults buying alcohol for minors who are asking for a waiver outside the shops. Improve safety of those young people who drink in parks and in the streets when there is no other place to go. I must say that we may not agree with this view, but there is a strong harm reduction aspect on that recommendation, and I think it's really, really something to note. And last, produce nationwide campaigns. Next slide, please. Then some conclusions. The results showed that use of alcohol was common across all the project countries. Almost all interviewers personally knew peers that are drinking alcohol occasionally. Results are in line with ESPAT's study, where average was 80% those who had drunk alcohol in at least once during their lifetime. Most FIFA respondents felt that young people doing sports drink less alcohol than those who are not doing sports. The result is inconsistent with scientific research, which says that sport activities, especially team sports, seems not to be a protective factor against alcohol use. And that under circumstances, like when there is a peer pressure, it may even increase the risk of alcohol consumption. Anyhow, I think it's important that there are a lot of young people who have adopted strong athletic identity without alcohol, We should support them and make this attitude last. Youth sports clubs have great opportunities to become health promoting settings. However, that's not something that happens automatically. Sports clubs should focus on coach support, life skills reinforce, club rules and strategies, discussion of alcohol issues with young people, creating alcohol-free brand for a club, setting adults for a good example, and academic support. Next, please. When making policies in relation to alcohol and sports, we should foresee their impact on children and youth. A child perspective is needed for decision making among politicians, professionals, and even event producers too. Almost all young people in FIFA study had frequently noticed alcohol advertisements on various platforms. In the context of sports too. Most interviewers felt that alcohol marketing doesn't impact on them. There is a contradiction between scientific research and young people's own views too. According to the research, alcohol advertising speeds up the onset of alcohol use by children and increases alcohol consumption and binge drinking in adolescence. The more children see alcohol advertising around them, the greater the impact of advertising is on their behavior. So, more media education is needed for young people. At last, I must say that young people have strong opinions and knowledge of the ways to reduce alcohol harms. Their views are really worth of listening. Most of them are also in line with the scientific research too. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you very much, Lena, for this giving this good and encouraging overview over the young people. And I totally agree with your last two sentences. Just reading or following your recommendations from the young people, they do really have a good grasp of life, and it is good for us to know that if we listen more to the young ones, maybe the world would be a better place. Who knows? But at least we probably have some more questions out there, Sandra. Can I give you the floor?
Yes, thank you, Marianne. I mean, I was just, sorry, there are loads of questions, comments. So the only thing I would like to say at this moment is please, for all the participants that they didn't get an answer, do not forget to check our FIFA project.eu website, and then you will have access to all the reports in due time, and then you can also find some answers there. And do not hesitate to contact us at info@eurocare.org, and maybe we can help you further. I see some questions that were directed for WP4 and WP6, and those will be maybe taken directly by our partners. So there is an interesting exchange going in the chats from Kerry O'Brien, who is noting that grassroots sports is struggling worldwide, and therefore participation seems to be declining in most sports, and time and financing there are a major issue. The same for Australia, New Zealand, and the UK. Money apparently goes up, but not down to grassroots, and therefore alcohol sponsorship is easy to get in the mainstream sports, and non-professional sporting codes are, according to Kerry, struggling for money. So it's low. according to him, there needs to be replacement funding for alcohol sponsorship and advertising, and that should come from the taxes government collects from alcohol sales, as a note in his opinion. So he's happy about our work and encourages us to go further on this one. And even McKinney also insists on this comment or about replacement state funding to be provided for grassroots. And so I think it's more comments rather than questions. So if you are happy with it, I would just give the floor to our last presentation, and then do not hesitate to maybe pose some questions for Kasia and Lena, and then we will take them at the end of our presentation to keep up with the timing, if that's okay.
Okay, thank you, Sandra. I understand the floor is mine, so I would like to present the FIFA recommendations for youth sports clubs, which are the main product of the Work Package 9. Next slide, please. And the Work Package 9 aimed to raise awareness among key policy and decision makers about the issues between alcohol use and sports, to aimed at promoting best practices in sport-based alcohol prevention, and to provide a space for advocacy, development, partnership building, and exchange between stakeholders. And the methods we applied to produce these recommendations based on the up-to-date scientific knowledge included expert meetings, scientific literature review, and analysis of the outcomes of other FIFA work packages. Next. The main aim of the recommendation is to promote best policies and practices in preventing alcohol use and alcohol-related harms among youth in sports settings. And these recommendations are organized in 3 key dimensions of alcohol prevention in sports settings, such as international, national, and local policies regulating alcohol use, distribution, and marketing in sports settings, preventive interventions to be implemented in sports settings, and a social climate determined mainly by interpersonal relationships in sports environment and by club's ideology. Next slide. So as for our recommendations on policies are based mainly on the assumption that marketing of alcohol in sports encourages youth to mistakenly associate alcohol with health and well-being. And of course, we would like to avoid this kind of association. Next, please. So our key recommendation for international sporting bodies is to explicitly ban the marketing and sponsorship of sports by the alcohol industry, but also to take into account and to listen to youth voices speaking up against manipulative industry practices, and to use social media to share examples of practices in sports where the risk associated with alcohol use is being disregarded for profit. At the national level, we would like to recommend, first of all, to support preventive initiatives such as training programs for sport professionals, development of training materials, and especially to support the dialogue between sport and prevention professionals. Next, please. Our recommendations for those who work at the local level are first of all based on the assumption that they should take in when elaborating their policies, they should take into account that no alcohol industry, but effective alcohol management delivers additional benefits to club in the form of financial viability, expanded membership, increased spectators, and greater capacity for competition, exactly as it's shown by the Scottish example. On the other hand, if like in the Sportivo club, alcohol is available in the club, we would like to recommend to avoid practices associated with an increased probability of risky drinking, like having alcohol promotion or serving intoxicated patrons. Of course, alcohol prevention should be an integral part of the general health promotion policies. What we also would like to stress is that all incidents of alcohol use by young players should be treated first of all as signals to provide individualized support to them, like referral to the professional treatment. Next, please. Okay, our recommendations for preventive intervention in a sport club, again, are based on the clear the statement that sport clubs are not like schools, so manualized, standardized preventive programs are rather not adequate for sport settings, so where prevention should be much more based on discussion and individualized education. Next, please. So our tips for club managers are concerned especially their ability to discuss alcohol-related problems and potential of clubs as preventive settings with other stakeholders, and to improve their own knowledge and to develop the knowledge on alcohol-related problems among the staff. Next, please. Of course, in the sport clubs, probably the most important people for young players are their coaches. So first of all, we would like to remind them that they are the most important role models for their trainees. That young people learn much more from observing coaches than from listening to them. And that means that coaches' attitudes and behaviors related to alcohol are really crucial for education of young people. We also would like to recommend to coaches that they make sure that young people know and understand club policies regarding alcohol. And to observe what is happening with their trainees, and if any incidents of alcohol use occurs, to refer individual to a professional support. Of course, all preventive activities of the club can be significantly supported by parents of young players. And parents, first of all, should remember that in spite of all other social influences, they still are very important people in their children's life, and they are also significant role models. So they also have to remember this and, for example, avoid drinking alcohol during matches. Also, what is very specific for a parent's role is that they should make sure that their children know that they want them not to drink to alcohol and why. And of course, young players are also very influential in sport settings. They themselves are role models for their peers. And but our key message for them is that they should always remember that no one but themselves has the most influence on their life. So their own decisions are crucial for their health, future, and achievements in sports. And as we heard from previous presentation, young people have really good ideas how to protect themselves and how to support their colleagues in avoiding alcohol-related problems. Next, please. So now the third pillar of effective alcohol prevention in sport clubs is concerned social climate, which is shaped by the relationships between adults in the club, between adults and young people, and between young people themselves. Next, please. And as everything is about relationships, we would like to recommend, first of all, to club managers to maintain good communication with all people engaged in club life, to discuss openly all crucial issues like club's culture and norms, expectations of what young people should know and do, understanding of club's mission and goal, and of course problems associated with alcohol. We also would like to recommend to make sure that the values of fair play are the prime values in the club. Next, please. And of course, this fair play values concern, first of all, the respect for the others, for oneself, and for the game. And putting winning in its proper place. That means that it shouldn't be, although it's very important in sports, it shouldn't be emphasized too much, because it takes the fun out of the game, put undue stress on players, make sport unappealing for those who don't like so much winning, and make young players vulnerable for use of psychoactive substances. And instead of too much emphasis on winning, we would like to recommend to focus on other tasks to be accomplished in sports, especially personal development. Next slide, please. So in this aspect, our recommendations for coaches is first of all to strengthen the ambition of sportive achievements of young players. The ambition and competition level can be an important protective factor, as we heard from Work Package 7. Another recommendation is that coaches should be available for young people and show them that they care about them. It can be also shown by their contacts with parents of trainees. As for parents, we would like to recommend that they are involved in their child's life, including sport activities. And for young players, our recommendation is, first of all, respect the rules of fair play and be engaged in your sport club affairs. Next slide. So, to sum it up, we hope that our recommendations, which are form to be a easy to use tool, might be useful for different stakeholders engaged in sports and may facilitate different activities in the area of sport-based alcohol prevention. Thank you. The next. Yes, thank you.
Thank you very much, Kasia. This is really the final outcome of our 3-year journey when we have managed to put together these recommendations. And we are looking forward to see if we can manage to disseminate them widely in the coming years, actually, and get them implemented on all both international, national, and local level. So we're also happy to receive comments from the sports organization about how useful they are and any changes that could be needed, or updates or whatever. But there might be some more questions, Sandra. Do we have a couple of questions now?
Thank you, Marianne. I see that you almost solved a question from Christelle Santerre. She was actually asking about how do we plan to disseminate our findings. So to continue on that front, we will be doing that on local, national, and international level. Of course, this webinar is part of our dissemination, and unfortunately it's in a different format that we have expected to do, as we said at the beginning, in Poland, in our fantastic venue. But we will continue to disseminate our materials. Also be aware that this presentation will be available, and all the information concerning the working packages will be uploaded into our website, so this will be available as very shortly. And then please note that our partners continue to work on the final versions of some of our partners continue to work on the final versions of the reports, and those will also be available in our website. Do not hesitate to contact us for any information that you might require, and then we'll be happy to take that on board and help you. So yes, for dissemination, and just to take this exciting project forward. I have 2 more questions, maybe one for Lena on her research. So one of the questions that was posed, taking into account that this was a qualitative research, the part that Lena conducted, was whether Lena, did you find any differences in the answers provided by the young people by nationalities? Did you find any differences from maybe responses from the Finnish group or the Italian group or other nationalities? Maybe you can help us a bit more onto that one.
Okay, thank you for the question. But I'm sorry to say the sample was so limited, so small that we were not able to do any analysis for individual variables. But if something has to say now, we did not see any big differences between nationalities or genders in results.
Okay, thank you, Lena.
Okay.
And then, yeah, maybe one question from Carla Frasau. She was, I think this maybe could be answered by Bridge or Eric, who were working on this. So the question from Carla is whether there were any examples on the elaboration of alcohol and other addictive behavior policies in sports clubs, and maybe Bridge can help us to give some light on that one.
Yeah, sure. Thank you for that question, Carla. Yeah, so basically we did a review of the different policies, and generally, you know, for example, UEFA, they talk about drinking alcohol in moderation, and they emphasize the impact of alcohol on slowing recovery. And the reality is, I think, you know, the general picture was that the higher up you got within the sport at elite level, the more that general discussion was kind of accepted that alcohol affects recovery and the impact on performance is well known. I suppose the reality of this project is, though, it brings to the fore that actually it's at that next level down, maybe, that really the message isn't getting through as well. So the clubs talked about how it's more about a holistic relationship that they have with their players, as was the case at national level too. So they don't discuss alcohol harms explicitly. It's more implicit in what they it's accepted that this has an effect on their performance. And I suppose the messaging we're getting out from this project is that at the local level, though, by having that implicit, maybe it's not as clear to young people as it should be, and you also have this contradictory message coming with this partnership with marketing. So there were no clear policies on alcohol. It was more that it was implicit that this is about a healthy lifestyle.
Right. Can I just pick up, Sandra? I wanted to pick up more the point about the messaging from young people, to pick up on Lena's point. I think it's really important that so there's one young man from Scotland who recommended that we should lower the legal drinking age, and we considered it really important to include that recommendation, because if we ask young people what we think, we can't then censor what they tell us. We need to hear what they're saying and what they're concerned about. And he was actually very eloquent in describing his concerns about safety and being in dangerous places. And as health specialists, we need to be listening to that. And I think that's the key message. So we don't necessarily just hear what young people say and think that the recommendation there, the policy recommendation they're making, is necessarily going to understand the complexity and the totality. But we do need to hear that young people are concerned about safety and need to put things in place to make them feel more safe.
Thank you very much, Eric. I think we are, we're respecting the timing. So I would really like to thank you, all partners and participants today, and particularly the voices of the of the young people who contributed, and you've seen them on screen and seen some of the comments that they share with us. So that was very exciting for us. I don't have any more questions. Just give me a second. From my side, I think this is more or less clear. I have some contribution from Colin Regan from the Gaelic Athletic Association, so he's sharing some some comments also on the work of that association. So maybe if you're interested, I will refer you to this link that he has shared with us. And I will give the floor to Marianne, and I wish you all a good day and a good continuation of your work. Thank you for all the participation.
Thank you very much, Sandra, and thank you, everybody. We are actually very well on time now, so that's good. And I want to say especially thank you for all the participants participating here. I'm sorry I cannot really see you, but we know you're there, and we will answer your questions and comments as well as we can. And please do not hesitate to contact us. And I also want to say this is really just the start of a journey we're starting up. As it has been said several times, COVID-19 has changed all our plans, has changed our lives for everybody. But we do hope that we slowly will get back to our normal way of working. And we plan to, as Mr. Tarabella kindly said, he is willing to host an event in the European Parliament when it's back in normal way. So hopefully we can all invite you back in 2021 to continue the discussions, to continue the recommendations, to see where we're going, and to find ways forward. I can already also now say that in 5th and 6th of April in 2022, we have the 9th European Alcohol Policy Conference, and FIFA will definitely have a space there, have a big session where it will again be presented, but hopefully further on with new developments. So we have come one step further. I want to thank you all for being here. All presentations will be available on the FIFA website. The project is, all the deliverables are delivered, but we still have some final adjustments to the different reports, language checks. You know, we have our what I call it, European or Brussels English, so it needs to be updated a bit once in a while and be a bit more. So these things are going on, and when they will be finalized, they will be available on the website. Before you leave, you will, just as you are about to leave, you will get a survey. It takes around 3 to 5 minutes. Can I please ask you, all attendees, to answer that survey for us? It's really valuable. This is the first time we do a final conference as a webinar, and we need more information and more knowledge about how it works and what works well, etc. So thank you, everybody, and I look forward to see you again in the future sometime. Okay, bye-bye. Thank you. All the speakers, yeah. Okay. Bye.